Welcome to Fair's domain, where the shadows hide secrets, and the darkness tells its stories. If you dare to step into the unknown, you're about to hear tales that will send chills down your spine. From haunted souls to unspeakable horrors, we've got the stories that will keep you awake at night. So, lock the door, dim the lights, and let the darkness embrace you. Are you ready to listen?
The Doctor's Shadow. The night was unusually quiet for the small, rural town of Grey Oaks. Its one main road was bathed in the cold light of a crescent moon, its pale glow barely piercing the mist that curled around the old, dilapidated buildings. At the heart of the town stood the Grey Oaks Medical Center, an imposing structure that looked as if it had been forgotten by time, its walls cracked and windows boarded up. Despite its derelict appearance, the hospital was still operational. Some said it was the last place to trust, others swore it held miracles, but all agreed on one thing. People who went in never came out the same. Dr. Evelyn Rook had just started working there, a fresh graduate eager to prove herself. She'd heard the rumors. Every small town has its whispers, the kind of stories you hear when the lights go out and the only thing left is the sound of your own heartbeat. She had told herself that she wouldn't be the kind of doctor who was influenced by superstition. But the deeper she dug into the hospital's files, the more unsettling the truth became. Evelyn's first night shift was nothing like she had expected. The halls were eerily silent, save for the soft shuffle of footsteps echoing through the corridors. She had arrived at 9 p.m., eager to get acquainted with the team. But as the night drew on, something about the place began to feel wrong. The nurses worked in strange silence, moving quickly and without speaking. No one answered her questions about the hospital's history. It was as if they were avoiding the subject altogether. Then there was the patient. His file was as peculiar as the hospital itself. The man, John Doe, had been admitted days ago with severe neurological symptoms: forgetfulness, tremors, and sudden violent outbursts. His condition had worsened rapidly, but none of the doctors could pinpoint the cause. He was transferred to the isolation ward, where the most bizarre things began to occur. Dr. Rook was assigned to monitor his condition. She read his notes with growing unease. The patient's vital signs were irregular, his pupils dilated in a way that suggested something unnatural. But what troubled Evelyn most was the fact that every few hours his blood tests would mysteriously disappear from the system, only to reappear with anomalies. Levels of certain chemicals that shouldn't be in the human body, not in such concentrations. A chill ran down her spine. Why had the previous doctors been so secretive about John Doe's case? And why had he been kept in isolation, away from the eyes of others? She stood outside the isolation room, staring at the reflection of herself in the glass, her thoughts racing. Could this be a rare disease, something even modern medicine couldn't explain? Or was there something darker at play? As the clock struck midnight, she heard something, a soft tapping from inside the room. Hesitant, she pushed open the door, the smell of antiseptic hitting her like a physical blow. But it wasn't the smell of illness that made her freeze. It was the sight before her. John Doe was sitting up in his bed, his back to her, but his head was tilted at an impossible angle. He whispered, barely audible, "You're not supposed to be here, Doctor." Rook. The door slammed shut behind her, making Evelyn jump. Her heart raced as she turned to face John Doe, who was now facing her. His eyes, once clouded, were sharp, unnervingly clear. "You think you can fix me?" he asked, his voice a low, guttural growl. Evelyn took a step back, her medical training momentarily failing her. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. But before he could respond, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the room. Evelyn glanced up at the ceiling, confused. The power had never flickered before in the hospital. When she turned back to John Doe, His face was no longer the man she had seen earlier. His skin had turned pale and waxy, his veins visibly black beneath the surface. His hands, once trembling, now twitched in unnatural, erratic motions. "You have no idea what they did to me," John Doe whispered again, his voice now coming from multiple directions, as though it were echoing off the walls of her mind. "And what they'll do to you." With a force that she could not comprehend, Evelyn was thrown backward, slamming into the wall. Her vision blurred as the air in the room grew thick, almost suffocating. The last thing she saw before she lost consciousness was John Doe standing up from his bed, his eyes not human, glowing with an eerie, malevolent energy.